You always become whatever you're fascinated with. And here again, this is the law of mind. If you become fascinated by poverty, you become poor. You become fascinated with sickness and the reports of all kinds of diseases, you will become sick. Whatever you become fascinated with, you'll get it and it'll get you. This is the law of mind, and it works with anything. So do not become fascinated with what you do not want. If you want to be wealthy, become fascinated with wealth. Become fascinated with wealthy people. If you want to be successful and prosperous, become fascinated with successful, prosperous people. And I've always been fascinated with successful, prosperous people. Go to your library, read about successful people. Read about prosperous people. When you read the newspaper, skip over the news about the recession and the depression and read about somebody who just made millions and millions. You all
Massive day at the Senate subcommittee hearing this morning. Here's a few highlights.
The studies designed to examine the long-term effects of the cumulative number of vaccines or other aspects of the immunization schedule have not been conducted. Who was the head of infectious disease at Henry Ford Medical Center. And he agreed to meet and to potentially do the study. He conducts clinical trials for vaccines, including for the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. He's avowedly pro-vaccine. And when we met him, we argued that this was an opportunity to shut the anti-vaxxers up. To our surprise, Dr. Zerva said he would conduct the study. He recruited a chief epidemiologist and two statisticians within Henry Ford to do so. These were mainstream scientists who no doubt held orthodox views regarding vaccines. In early 2020, I received a copy of the study. It showed the results of the analysis comparing children enrolled in Henry Ford from 2000 to 2016 from birth onward who had no vaccines compared to those who had one or more vaccines. The study was based on actual medical records. Meaning, finally, a large vaccinated versus unvaccinated study using health data from a major United States health institution, something, as the IOM pointed out, never existed before. The study began by explaining it set out to reduce vaccine hesitancy by assuring parents the CDC vaccine schedule is safe. Instead, what these researchers found was that vaccinated children had 4.29 times the rate of asthma, 3.03 times the rate of atopic disease, 5.96 times the rate of autoimmune disease, and 5.53 times the rate of neurodevelopmental disorders, which included 3.28 times the rate of developmental delay and 4.47 times the rate of speech disorder.
You're not a medical doctor, are you?
No, sir.
And you're not an immunologist or biologist or any kind of...
Or vaccinologist, no, but I depose them regularly, including the world's leading ones with regards to vaccines, and I have to make my claims based on actual evidence when I go to court with regards to vaccines. I don't get to rely on titles.
Okay.
Peace. What's up? It is Sunday. It's October the 19th. Man, October's done. On to November. You know, got like 10 days left. And we're going to be celebrating another New Year ritual. I look forward to that. I gotta plan that this week, so let me write that down. That I must plan the ritual. For the new year. Okay. All right. Gotta plan that out. I don't know. I want to maybe do something a little different this year. I don't know. I'll work it out. So the first video I played was you got to become fascinated with your success. You got to become fascinated with things like If you want prosperity, you want wealth, you want good relationships, you have to become fascinated with the idea of that. You have to lock it into your mind. See, I deal with people's issues almost daily. And I can tell what they're fascinated with by what they talk about. You see, some of them are fascinated with their battles that they're having with other people in past relationships. They're fascinated with it. You know, they're fighting it. This is my war. I got to do this. I got to win. I can't lose. I can't this. I can't that. It's all about, and these fascinations are all about fear of losing something that's really not theirs to begin with. I have children. I have 3 sons and 1 daughter, but they're not mine. I was just the being, the conduit, the instrument for them to get here. They belong to themselves. They belong to themselves and God, the God within them. Of course, I want them to succeed. But just like me, I had trials and tribulations that I went through, largely because of things I chose to believe in. Mental ideas or constructions that other people created, I adopted those constructions, put them in my brain, or accepted them. I contracted with them and I believed them and I acted on them. And then those actions led to results that I have up to this day. It's just like you listen to me. I give you information. I speak on information. You take it, you use it, you get results, right? Or you don't get results. It depends, right? But you decided to say what I'm saying is valid, and you believed it, and you went for it. So ultimately, the responsibility of how things are turning out is really on you, because it's not, oh, you blame me, oh, you told me this and it was bad advice, and maybe it was, or maybe it wasn't. I pride myself on not giving bad advice or bad guidance. All of the guidance that I give comes from a higher place. It doesn't come from me. It comes through me, through the God in me. I speak from the God within. Even this message today, I named it, "This Message is for You." And I was inspired to put it that way, to let people know that if you're here, then there's something here for you. There's something for you to take away from this that you can apply and hopefully use in your life. That it will upbuild you. It'll help you isolate where you can make some adjustments in your thinking that can improve your situation. All of these things you are experiencing come from the ideas in your mind. And you will never get any further than the ideas in your mind, as Reverend Ike has so eloquently put it so many years ago, back in the 60s. You will never get past or beat the ideas in your mind. You will always live up to the limit of your ideas. Hakeem, are you limiting me? No, I'm not. I'm telling you, you're only limited by the ideas in your mind. That is your one thing that is holding you back. What you choose to believe in, what you choose not to believe in, what you choose to associate, what you choose not to associate with. Everything comes down to one thing. And if everything comes down to a mental or idea in the mind, then the question is, who really is God? Where is God? So many people say, I believe in God. I believe in Jesus. Christ is my savior. They say all of these things. But do they really understand what that means? Because I can tell you definitively, most of them don't. 99.999% of them really don't know what that means. And at one point, I was part of the 99.99 that didn't really understand and know what believing in God is, what that really means. When I say that I believe in Christ and I believe in this and that, and I base it off of research, maybe I read the Bible, I read these other books, and I got a download, I got a spiritual vision. What am I really saying when I say this is what I believe in? This God that I call God is what I believe in. What am I saying? And it's a very simple answer. And this is why most people skip over it, because they're looking for God to be complicated. They're looking for God to be this super intellectual, complicated, beyond belief and understanding, which the church will always preach to you and say. That God is, God works in mysterious ways. And I'm telling you, God don't work in mysterious ways. He made everything is definitive. Everything is defined. Truth is always out in the open for you to experience and see. The only reason why we can't see it sometimes is because of one thing. It's the one thing, because we say we worship Jesus, we worship Christ, we worship God, we call him Jehovah, we call him Yahweh, we call him Elohim, we call it all of these different names. Yeshua. All of these different names. And it all comes down to one thing, one simple statement, what your real belief is. You might want to get a pen, or you might want to record what I'm about to say. It all comes down to this, and it's very simple. What you really believe in, what you call God, is the simple idea of what you believe is God. That's what you believe in. See, the God that I believe in, I say I believe him, is different from the next person's belief system. No one has a 100% exact agreement on what God is or isn't. Two of them. No one. There's no one here that has the same belief, the exact same belief system. There's always going to be some derivative or the disagreement, variation. Even in the churches, people go to church, they go together, and I go to this church. The only thing y'all in agreement that's the truth is y'all go to the same church. But do y'all have the same God even though you're in the same church? No, you don't. Because your understanding and your expectations of God is different from the next person. So the real truth of the matter that everyone has their own individual idea of God and belief of who and how and what way God is. So if that is the case, it helps you understand why you have so many denominations of one religion. And we have all these other religions, because we're fighting over something. People are disagreeing over something that just simply is a fact. And that if we all accept that person has a different walk with God or a different belief system of God, and if it's working for them, who am I to judge it? Who am I to say you're a devil worshiper? Who am I? Because I can tell you, I've read the Bible a few times. A lot. And I've taken on the responsibility of reading it all the way through again, right? And I'm going to take you to some things here to kind of connect this message that I tell it specifically for you, whoever's listening. Once again, your true belief of God is simply boils down to your own personal idea of what you think God is and who he is. Even if you were all reading the same Bible. This is why religions try to get people on the same page and say, you must study with me. You must interpret it the way I'm interpreting it. You have to, this is the way you should understand these scriptures. So then when you're doing that, then you're accepting their version of what God is or should be to you. You're accepting that. Then you really, if you're doing that, then you really can't really say you have a personal relationship with God, because they came up with the theology and the concept of what God is, where he is, and how he operates. And you said, oh, I'm going to align with you. I'm going to learn with you, this church, and align with their belief systems. And even then, you're not going to be 100% on board, because I know me, I've been to many, and I never really fully agree with everything. See the dilemma? You see the dilemma? So if this is the case that we never really fully agree, then what can we agree on? What can possibly stop all of these conflicts about who's right and who's wrong? And that's a simple answer. Don't judge other people in what they believe and don't believe in. Mind your business and worry about yourself. If you do that, keep your nose out of their religious beliefs and what they think is right or wrong, and let them have it. And when they speak on it and try to preach it to you, oh, okay, that's interesting. You don't have to retaliate or retort back. I don't agree with that. There was a time I did that. Then I realized I'm getting older. What am I doing this for? Why am I even wasting my time? It's not going to benefit me anymore to make them believe what I believe. Let them have it. Because like I said earlier, you would never get any further than the ideas in their mind. And if the God that they're serving is bringing them poverty and all kind of problems, that's what their life is ruled by, and that's what they're fascinated by, then that's their God. They live in a God of chaos. Are you starting to get the picture? Because God takes on different definitions for each individual person. If you're a person who's living well and life is going well, you're generally peaceful, then you have a God of peace and prosperity that's supporting your life. That's what God means to you. Oh, God don't mean that to me if I got my life is going wrong. No. Yes, it is, because the dominating thought of your mind and what you're fascinated is with your poverty, your problems, your bad relationships, whatever it is. Because I know those are dominating your thoughts because you're having the problem. You can't escape that. You can't escape that truth. If you are deeply immersed in a lot of issues right now, that means you're fascinated with issues and you have taken them on and agreed with them, and they're coming to be with you, to give you that which you are fascinated with. So if you want to fix that, you must become fascinated with the opposite: peace, prosperity, love, and general well-being, good well-being. You have to become fascinated with that until that starts to that's going to show up. That's going to start to show up at first, a little bit at a time. But the more your dominating thought is motivated by good things, what the church would call God things, but you stick another O in there, it's good. Have a good mind, a God mind. To have a good mind is to have a God mind. So the reality of it, the truth of it all, is God must work through you, in you, not outside of you. You can't go, oh, God, come. No. God already is here. He's within you. You're going to look for something that's not something to look for. When you look in the mirror, there's God. There he is, right there. There she is. Look in the mirror and see God within you. And it would just that thought alone, that action alone, would change the trajectory of the chaos that's going on in your life. Just That right there. If you could just take a few moments to go look in the mirror, if you got one, you got your camera phone, look at that. And look at God, and look how wonderfully made God is. All right. So 2 Kings chapter 17. Kings talks about all of the kings that rose and fell amongst Israel, Judah. And let me give y'all a fact about Israel. Israel is not a country. I mean, today they got a place that's called Israel, but in the Bible, Israel is not a country. It's a people. Same thing with Judah. It's a people. You know, those are two different, tribe of Judah and the tribe of Israel. God called his people Israel. Israel. Okay. And it's in these books. It says, my people I named Israel have turned away from me and worshipped other gods. The dominating theme in the book of Kings is how God had made covenants and ordinances with them, and they forsook them for other gods. And when they did that, they didn't do well. They did very well, bad. They even went so far as to sacrifice their own children to these other gods. And there was kings that came in and they did somewhat what God said, but they still didn't tear down these monuments in high places that they set up for these other gods. When God's people came back into power, it was a change of power. It was Israel, Judah, all of them had their own land in place of was called their land. And then other kings came and took them over, brought them back to their land. Then they came back. It was a bunch of back and forth going on in here. But the theme was, the reason why they was going back and forth, because when they were working within God's favor, they never lost. When they didn't work, they lost. Now, here's the question. Here's my question. Looking at us, what they call African American Black, we are losing, right? Let's not kid ourselves. We are losing. So what is it about us why we lose while other groups of people are thriving? We can name it, we can call it, we're not financial literacy, right? We don't educate ourselves on finances. And that's a symptom more than it is the real problem. That's one of the many symptoms. We're poorly educated on how to manage our money, right? Which a lot of people in this country are. But we tend to want to be entertained more than be prosperous and see our money grow. We love to put our money into things that cannot give us a return, right? That's how we invest our money. So, we go to football games, basketball games, all these things that entertain us, that take money. Go to these games, pay $10 for a hot dog and a drink. $20, you got one hot dog and a drink. You done spent $20. And we know it's ridiculously priced, but we do it anyway, right? I know wealthy people who had those season tickets, but you want to know something? I very rarely saw them go to these games. What they do is give those things to the workers, or they gave it to a client that they was trying to get business out of. They you know why they didn't go? They was a bit too busy making money. It was an investment. They probably bought it as a business write-off, a business expense, and then wrote that off. It's a business strategy. It wasn't solely for entertainment. But back to the point. There's a problem in our community. It's a bigger problem in our community and why we fail in a lot of areas. And it's all encoded right here. we got false idols. We don't have a true source. We have not tapped into the true source of our prosperity through a higher power. Oh yeah, people going to church and they clapping, they dancing and all that. And most of the people in church are not doing very well. There's few, a small percentage are. And then they blame it up, well, those people are applying God's principles and the other ones aren't. But that's like that. If you look around society, it's always a small percentage that do well, and the most majority don't. Some do average, some do below average, right? But, you know, on a grand scale of just true prosperity and freedom where they can get up and decide what they want to do each day without having to worry about a boss, most people are in that category. Some are at a higher income level, living okay, but if they lose their job, they done. They down there with the other ones, right? So let me read this. I don't even know where to start. I'll start in verse 7. Let me see 5. I'll just start on 5, 7, chapter 7. Then the king of Assyria invaded all the land and came to Samaria. For 3 years he besieged it. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria. He carried the Israelites away to Assyria. He placed them in Halah, on the Habah, the river of Gozan, and in the city of the Medes. This occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They had worshipped other gods and walked into the customs of nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel, and in the customs of that king that the kings of Israel had introduced. So they forsook their customs and took on these other kings' customs. And you can look at us today. That's what we have done. Basically, we're not worshiping. We're not giving the God of us, our people, our ancestors, true veneration and worship. We are basically worshiping based on what the colonizers came here and set up for us. Although Christianity is not originated from Caucasian people, but this version of it is. This current revisionary Christianity is. Therefore, is their way. And this is why it's working more for them than it is for them, because it's their form. And this is why I started out, the God you believe in is a mental form, is what you have accepted as truth by way of God, or truth in your belief in God. But is it the truth? And the way I gauge it is by way this book gauges it. When they lived in the ordinances and kept the covenant. A covenant is a contract. They made your ancestors made a contract with God all those years ago. And you must understand what that covenant is in order for you to be successful. Those people, listen, the God of Israel, Israel's God and Judah's God, and all those 12 tribes, 13 tribes actually, they had their one God. The other people had their own gods, and they were successful in what they did by their gods. Only time they weren't successful is when they came after the tribes of Judah, the tribes of Israel, and all the other tribes. And the only way they won is when they forsook the contract, because the contract was very specific. The covenant was made. As long as you do these things, I will protect you, and you will live long. You will have children and be prosperous. You will live good in the land. It was very specific. There was nothing left to the imagination. But then they took on wives from other places, and these wives or relationships brought in what? Their traditions. God didn't stop from doing that. He warned them, hey, you do this is what's going to happen. I told you what to do and what not. He didn't forbid them from marrying into other groups of people, because Solomon married many wives and they were from different places. But what he did for them, listen, because let me read it again so you can see what the contract was. This occurred because the people of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They had worshipped other gods and walked in the customs of the nations whom the Lord drove out before the people of Israel, and in the customs that the kings of Israel had introduced. The people of Israel secretly did things that were not right against the Lord their God. They built for themselves high places at all their towns, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up themselves pillars and sacred poles on every high hill and under every green tree. There they made offerings on all the high places, as the nations did, the other nations, whom the Lord carried away from them. They did wicked things, provoking the Lord to anger. They served idols, of which the Lord had said to them, you shall not do this. There's the contract. I'm going to bring you out of Israel, but in exchange, you must give me exclusive devotion. And that's the problem with our people. We have lost the meaning or the knowledge of what the exclusive devotion was when it came from those tribes, as it pertains to those tribes. And I know you did theology. Oh, that's the Old Testament. That's this, that's that, that's that. They all say the same thing. But here's one fact that you cannot escape. And that is, we've been doing it the other way for decades, and we're still at the bottom. So something's wrong with that method. There is a problem with the method. There's a problem with the theology. Right? Didn't y'all, made you go do all the church stuff, do all this, that, and the other as a kid. And even as a kid, you felt something wasn't right. Let's not play games here. You felt something was missing. The questions wasn't being answered. And since children, at your youngest age, you're closer to God than any time in your life. See, the adults come in and try to tell, oh, you need to listen to us. And they just as dumb and deaf, dumb, and blind as anything, because they blinded by what somebody else has told them. Children are the closest things to God. This is why Christ made it very clear that if you touch one of these, you harm one of these little children, you might as well put a millstone around your neck and pitch it into the sea. Because to mess with them is to blaspheme against God. Why? Because they are in a true nature. We as adults messed them up. We screwed them up with all of these false idol teachings. We do it. And then because we infected them with the false idol teachings, then now they're carrying that on to their children. You see how this all works? In order to get back to what we had then, we have to go back to the covenant. The covenant is not, it didn't change. Oh, they said, well, Christ died, his blood, he created a new covenant. And only that new covenant did was bring in other people outside of the tribe that was designated, that they could come in and be a part of the promise. right? But the rules still apply. Exclusive devotion. Exclusive devotion, right? Let me keep reading. Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah by every prophet. Let me go back. There they made offerings to all the high places. They did wicked things, provoking the Lord to anger. They served idols of which the Lord had said to them, you shall not do this. Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah and every prophet and every seer saying, let me say it again. Let me read it right. Yet the Lord warned Israel and Judah by every prophet and every seer saying. So who did he use to warn them? It said he warned Israel and Judah by every prophet and every seer saying. So there was prophets and there were seers. And God used them to warn Israel. In some Christians sects, they'll say that's demonic. But I'm looking at it right here. And then they'll say, oh, that's the Old Testament. Yeah, we can't pay attention to that. See, that's a distraction. Because the only time in the history of, just modern history where God's people, as we define them through this Bible, did well is when they followed these commandments. We've been going solely off the New Testament. The New Testament is this and that. And look at our people now. We lost more than ever. We lost. Let's call it what it is. Let's be real. I know some of y'all are church folks that listen to me. But I'm going off what I see with my own eyes. What I see. Every Sunday. I believe black folks are one of the most religious people in this country, especially black women. But yet, we all in last place for some reason. Oh, of course, it's the men's fault. It's our fault because we ain't taking the lead. We'll hear all that stuff. But when the truth of the matter, man, try to take a lead, you ain't listening. You doing your thing. You're strong and independent. And even by Christian standards, that's against the rules. Right? By the Christian standard. By what the Bible says, and go back to Genesis, going on all the way forward. So the truth of the matter is, from my observation and experience, the reason why we falling short is because the God we believe we think we know ain't the true God. It ain't the truth. Because if it was, we would be doing a whole lot better as a people. Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes. Here it is. In accordance with all the law that I commanded your ancestors and that I sent to you by my servants and prophets. They would not listen, but were stubborn as their ancestors had been, who did not believe in the Lord their God. They despised the statutes and his covenant that he made with their ancestors and the warnings that we gave them. They went after false idols, became false. They followed the nations that were around them. That's a fact. They follow the nations, right? Our parents all got us to go get them birth certificates from the government. Our parents had us go get those Social Security cards from the government because the government said you need this in order to do this and do that. Let me say it another way. Let me call it another. Let me explain to you another way what was actually happening. Or what the truth is when you get birth certificates and Social Security cards. You're getting your membership. You're getting your membership cards for the church, for their God. That's why they're prosperous. They got a whole godly system. They got a God. They put in God we trust on the money. They tell you this is the God we are worshiping. They put symbols all over the money. They put symbols on the birth certificate. They even got symbols on that Social Security card. We won't go into depth about that. But you took on their God by walking around with their birth certificate and Social Security card. But how do you fix that? How do you fix? The Bible says it right there. It says it. You must abandon these false gods and keep myself. So what was the rule for how they recorded births in that time? What was the rules? They didn't go in no government and record them. Well, then how am I going to get a benefit from the government if I had a stuff? See, that's the problem. Y'all looking for the prosperity come from man's government and not God. God will you will be taken care of if you follow his ways. There's groups of people that do it and they surviving. They don't do that and they live. See, those statements show me instantly that the person first loyalty is to what the government can do for them. Like when I start teaching these people come to me, oh, you know, I was in the military and I get a retirement. Oh, I'm retiring, I get a check. Will this interfere with my check? And they don't even know what they talking about. They don't even know what they're really saying. That they say what I'm teaching is good information and it's the right way to roll. But when it come to getting rid of them benefits, wait a minute. Then you don't want to do this for being in alignment with the true God. You just want to do it because it sounds good. And this is what the tribes of Judah, Israel were doing back then. It's the same thing. When the prophets and seers came to them and said, listen, you must rely and keep the commandments of God, because those commandment statutes had rules on how to give birth, all of that. It had all of those things in there. It was a religious government. They had a system. They had a process. But they forsook that process for other nations' process. And what did it do? It destroyed them. It even got them to do the most abominable things, sacrifice their children to these other people's gods. Oh, I'm going to ask right now that y'all get some chairs and sit down, because what I'm about to say is may hit you like a ton of bricks. So I'll give y'all a second to get your chairs. Somebody said, choose the thoughts that serve you. Absolutely. Okay, y'all sitting down? Y'all sitting down? So just like, all of this stuff is symbolisms, and why it's here for us to learn from. It's to teach us what went wrong then and what we need to do now. So they sacrificed their children. They did abominable things. They did so bad, right? They said he even made his sons pass through the fire according to the abominable practice of the nation, whose the Lord drove out before the people of Israel. He sacrificed and made offerings on high places of the hills and under every green tree. This is one of the kings of the tribe. And then this is how, when they worship these other people, these other gods, this is what happened. At the time, Menachem sacked Tipsah, all who were in it, and its territory for Tirzah on, because they did not open it to him. He sacked it. He ripped open all the pregnant women in it. See, this is what happened when they went against God. God let these kings come and these other people come in and kill the women, rip them open. Not just kill me, rip them open. Okay? But this is all, now that I feel like y'all have your chairs and sit down, what we have done by getting the government's birth certificates and all those credentials in our children's name, because you get to name the child, right? You name it. By divine inspiration, you came up with a name, and then you turned around and sacrificed that child symbolically to the government by way of a birth certificate and social security card. You have signed them over to Baal. And you sign as the mom signs as a witness, an affiant. Because it says it, the affiant states. It doesn't say the mother states. Why does they put it as an affiant? Why do they do that? A person who swears to an affidavit. That's an affidavit of birth that you, when you doing all of that registration stuff. Then the Department of Health person comes in and signs on top of it, swearing, yeah, this person said. The affiant. First of all, let me explain something to you. Maybe I'll elaborate more on Tuesday. I don't know. Just depends on what the Spirit tells me to say. A mother can never be an affiant to the birth of her own child. Should never be. Why do I say that? Because affiant is, she can swear to the fact that she gave birth. Right? She can swear to that. But the baby, unless she's actually seen that baby coming out of her womb, and from time it come out and it's shown to her, okay, that's my child and that's a boy or girl, she doesn't have all the facts. And I'm speaking specifically about births in a hospital, not births where you're doing home births, because there she can really testify to the birth. She can really be a witness to it, because the method and how they bring birth. Those tools, because those are what you call divine methods of bringing a child into the world. But when you go to a hospital, they drug you up, you don't know what's going on. You're half out of it, out your mind, with pain and all of these other things. They take the baby away, put it over. They don't even bring the baby immediately to the mother. She doesn't see the baby until after she's rested, and they bring her to a room after they bring her to the room where she's staying in. So how can she truthfully testify that that baby is hers? But that's who they get to sign it. You don't think that's not by design? So that means every birth certificate is a lie. But that's what this system wants when you sacrifice the Baal. Because what did the Bible say Satan was? The father of the lie. So in order to exist in their realm, you must be a liar. You can't be the truth. The only people that can swear to the truth of the child is someone who's there, observed that baby come out of a womb and say, okay, that's my child coming out of the womb. The father. In that specific setting. That's why the father must be present. But in modern day hospitals, fathers, they be in there. But he don't sign. He just, only thing they get the father to sign is that affidavit of paternity, that you're the legal father, saying you're going to take care of my legal child by way of child support. You signing over your rights to bail again. Everything they do is to get you hooked and make you a slave to the system. So you are a benefit to them, not the other way around. But God had created, the true God have created his own laws and statutes and commandments and how we're supposed to rule. And then by that way, he protects us and makes us prosperous. He make the rain come so we don't have famine. But when you rely on man, there's always going to be a famine. I tell you, God had been providing for people in the country water for as long as we know, right? Y'all know, y'all got people living in the country living off wells, and they've been living on those wells for decades. But raised families coming, grow, and new family come on, and they still getting water out of the same well. Come on. So God is always providing what you need. And if you know you can grow food, and you can herd your own flock. But when we forsook the commandments of God, we put all of that in the hands of our true God, who raised statues and monuments and high places for you to go to and give tribute. In this modern age, you give tribute by way of paying them taxes for the land they didn't even create. That's your tribute to being part of that membership. The United States government is a church. Okay? And all of the states, counties are what you call integrated auxiliaries of those churches, of that main church. They adopted into it. And they created their monuments. Their courtrooms look like churches, so that you can come in and do obeisance to their one true God. And they prosper off of you because they created laws, statutes that they live by. And if you don't follow them, what do? They police you. They take you to jail. When you break God's rules. See the parallels? See the comparisons there? They rejected all the commandments of the Lord their God and made for themselves cast images of two calves that they made sacred. They made a sacred pole, worshiped all the hosts of heaven, and served Baal. They made their sons and their daughters pass through fire. They used divination and augury. I'm not sure what augury means. What is augury? It's A-U. Did I spell that right? Oh, it's A-U-G. U-R-Y. A sign of what will happen in the future. Omen. Okay. All right. They used augury, and they sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, provoking him to anger. Therefore, the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. None was left but the tribe of Judah alone. So Israel was removed, and the only thing was left was Judah. Interesting. Because, who is this? What's this Israel we talking about today? Okay. All right. Judah also did not keep the commandments of Lord their God, but walked in the customs that Israel had introduced. So Israel introduced to Judah the bad stuff. The Lord rejected all of the decisions of Israel. He punished what Israel had introduced. The Lord rejected all the descendants of Israel. He punished them and gave them into the hand of the plunderers until he had banished them from his presence. When he had torn Israel from the house of David, they made Jeroboam, son of Nebat, king. Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord and made them commit great sin. The people of Israel continued in all the sins that Jeroboam committed. They did not depart from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, and he had foretold through all his servants, prophets. So Israel was exiled from their own land to Assyria until this day. So Israel is not a country, it's a people. So because they were exiled, Israel was exiled from the land. So this whole Jewish thing that we having this debate over is Israel was exiled from their own land to Assyria until this day. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, Sepharvaim, placed them in the cities of Samaria in place of the people of Israel. They took possession of Samaria and settled in its cities. When they first settled there, they did not worship the Lord. Therefore, the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So whenever they settled in the land that God had designated for his people, when they came in, they started doing all that other godly stuff. Yeah, you're going to get ate up by lions. So the king of Syria was told, the nations that you have carried away and placed in the cities of Samaria do not know the law of the God of the land. Therefore, he has sent lions among them. They are killing them because they do not know the law of the God of the land. The land had a law you must live by. And think about it, how we are handled and how we're treated. We're not living by the proper law. Not this law that man has created. Then the king of Assyria commanded, send there one of the priests whom you carried away from there. Let him go, live there, and teach them the law of the God of the land. So to keep all of these lion attacks and all the calamities that was happening, they had to go get one of those priests so they can learn the law. So one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and lived in Bethel. He taught them how they should worship the Lord. But every nation still made gods of its own and put them in the shrines of the high places that the people of Samaria had made. Every nation in the cities in which they lived, the people of Babylon made Succoth-Benoth. The people of Cuth made Nagal. The people of Hamath made Hashima. The Havites made Nibhaz and Tartak. The Sepharites burned their children in the fire to Adremelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. They also worshiped the Lord and appointed from them among themselves all sorts of people who are priests of the high place who sacrificed for them in the shrines of high places. So they worshiped the Lord, but also served their own gods after the manner of the nations from among whom they had been carried away. To this day, they continue to practice their former customs. They do not worship the Lord, and they do not follow the statutes of ordinance of the law, commandment that the Lord commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel. Israel's not a place, it's not a land, it's a people. Whom he named Israel. Meet again, statute or ordinance of the law, the commandments that the Lord commanded the children of Jacob. He named the children of Jacob Israel. So stop following all of this media and stuff, man, because it's all distraction. Okay. The Lord had made a covenant with them and commanded them, you shall not worship other gods or bow yourself to them or serve them or sacrifice to them, but you shall worship the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt with great power, and with an outstretched arm you shall bow yourselves to him, and to him you shall sacrifice. The statutes and the ordinances and the law and the commandment that he wrote for you, you shall always be careful to observe. You shall not worship other gods. You shall not forget the covenant that I have made with you. You shall not worship other gods, but you shall worship the Lord your God. He will deliver you out of the hand of all your enemies. They would not listen, however, but they continued to practice their former customs. So these nations worship the Lord, but also serve their carved images. To this day, their children and their children's children continue to do as their ancestors did. I'm gonna stop right there. I think I made my point on that, because you have to look at it truthfully. If our form of worship, our idea of worship is good, why aren't we succeeding in it? Why aren't we succeeding? Why aren't we succeeding? Why? That's the Wizard of Oz you was talking about on the other show. Brother said truth is always installed in us at birth, consciousness in your living proof we are God. Absolutely. Israel show how important it is to separate poor influences brought by adopted family practice. Absolutely. See, the reason why they keep serving the false gods to this day, and I compare us to them because it isn't all the people that you can compare that to. The way we are living, because all of the poor influences about God and what religion is, we're scattered. We don't know. Israel and Judah shows how family can have baptism and need to adopt the personal choice to choose the law of the Most Higher consciousness. So we have to understand what these laws and these ordinances are, and there's I won't go into that now, but what I will say is, I'm not telling y'all what to do. I'm just telling y'all, look at the facts and make a decision. Make a decision. A lot of this stuff we've been doing, mostly by herd mentality, has been harming us financially, spiritually, even our families. In our family, divorce rates is high. 70-80% of the homes are being run by single moms. They don't have two parents in the home in our community. But yet, the biggest group of people that go to church is us, and then mainly it's not even the men, it's the women that go to church. And that's why it's bad, because the men ain't going to church. No, because them churches ain't got nowhere for them. The men, them churches don't respect men. That's what men use their common sense when it comes to that stuff. We don't let words sway us into following nonsense. Yes, do men need to take the lead? But you got to remember, large amount of the men of today coming out of a single mother home. So proper instruction was not given to a lot of these males on how to be a man, to be men. Most of the examples that they get is from their mom. And a woman cannot teach a man how to be a man because she's a woman. So you can only teach a woman how to be. She can give, proper instruction on in a lot of ways, but to teach a man, a good man, true man, can only teach a man how to be a man. Because the way we operate, how we operate, we're not gonna coddle excuses. We're not gonna no, don't come to me with no excuses. Come to me with a solution. We do understand mistakes are made and things don't go right, but don't make excuses for it. And the real issue, the law of God, the true God is within us. That's where the truth is. Until we go within, you'll never have what you need on the outside. That's it. Because we have it. It's built into us. It comes through our ancestors. But we're not relying on that. We're relying on these other guys to give us favor. You see, this brother said, the man usually bite the fruit of a religion his wife chooses. Yeah, they doing the Adam. It's called the Adam effect. Instead of letting Eve know, hey, that wasn't the right thing to do, and then going to God and apologizing, hey, because he was the head, and approaching God with, repentance, and hey, we didn't do right. But God kept his word. He said, you will die. You mess around with that. Of course, that's all symbolism. But for the sake of this conversation, I speak the way I speak. But anyway. All right. I'm going to say have a blessed and prosperous, good day this Sunday, the 19th. I'm going to leave you with that. Peace.
Always become whatever you're fascinated with. And here again, this is the law of mind. If you become fascinated by poverty, you become poor. You become fascinated with sickness and the reports of all kinds of diseases, you will become sick. Whatever you become fascinated with, you'll get it and it'll get you. This is the law of mind, and it works with anything. So do not become fascinated with what you do not want. If you want to be wealthy, become fascinated with wealth. Become fascinated with wealthy people. If you want to be successful and prosperous, become fascinated with successful, prosperous people. And I've always been fascinated with successful, prosperous people. Go to your library, read about successful people. Read about prosperous people. When you read the newspaper, skip over the news about the recession and the depression and read about somebody who just made millions and millions.